What's up, everybody? It's your girl, Phoenix Moon, aka Brittany Marie. And today I'm going to be discussing my birth story. So, first of all, I want to say how grateful for the experience, although it wasn't the experience I intended on having. I still learned a lot and grew a lot from the situation. So, first, I want to start by saying, or second, I want to start by saying, let's see, where do I start? Okay, so I started having contractions. I started having pain. I started having cramping. Actually, a day before I went to the hospital, and my midwife was telling me like I need to rest, I need to stay home, and I was like, no, like I'll be fine. I'll rest when I come back home. So I totally ignored the cramping, and then the next day, the cramping got more and more intense. And then I had a meeting with my midwife, and she was literally telling me the signs of labor. And within like a couple hours after, mind you, it was the full moon, the super blood full moon, and the contractions started getting more and more intense. The power went out. I lost service. I literally couldn't contact nobody. Thankfully, my good friend Bree was here, and I was able to ask her to like take me to the hospital. Mind you, she was like on E, and literally like I was trying to call my midwife, and I couldn't get in touch with my midwife because the power went out. Literally, like it was turning into a horror story. And yeah, so finally the power cut back on, and I got in contact with my midwife, and she was like, look, like what are you gonna do, like you probably need to go to the hospital. So Bree took me to the hospital, and I threw up in the waiting room, and by the time I got to the room and the doctor checked me, I was 4 centimeters dilated. And they were like, okay, we're gonna stop your labor. We're gonna try to stop your labor, because I was on Kauai, Hawaii, and in Kauai they don't have a NIC unit. And I was 34 weeks and 4 days. So, but at this time I'm going into preterm labor. This baby is coming early. He's ready. So they're like, if you're gonna have this baby, your baby's gonna be shipped to Oahu. That was the first thing they told me. They was like, if you're having this baby here, your baby is gonna be shipped, because we don't have a NIC unit. We don't have the proper tools and doctors to be able to care for your baby here. So he's gonna be shipped. Or we can stop your labor, or try to stop your labor and get you over to Oahu, stabilize you and get you. So that's what they attempted to do. They gave me a shot to stop the contractions, which didn't work. The contractions kept coming, but it did stabilize my dilation. So I was able to, they also gave me a shot in the butt. Like, it was intense, and the shot they gave me literally had me shaking. Like, my belly was shaking, I was shaking. I felt like I was on like a high dose of like cocaine. It was intense. It was a medicine that like pretty much sped up the heart rate and slowed everything else down. So they finally stabilized me, and I was able to be shipped to Oahu. Once I got to Oahu, mind you, like I got a whole jet experience. Took the jet, like did a slight documentary of like leaving the hospital on a, flatbed or whatever they call those things. And everybody was super nice. Everybody was cool. I was trying to like keep the vibes high, cracking jokes, talking to the pilot, asking them what kind of plane this is. Just, just random stuff. Mind you, I'm still having contractions, but they're mild, super mild. And so it takes me like 30 minutes to get to Oahu. And I meet all these new doctors, all these new nurses, and so I'm just chilling at this point. I'm just like, all right, well, I'm not dilating anymore. They do a sonogram to see if the baby is head down. He was for sure head down, ready to go. So then, as the day goes on, one of the doctors come and check on my dilation, and amongst the checking, she applied a little bit too much pressure and actually broke my water, and it was pretty painful. It was more painful than the previous doctor who checked me, and so I knew like there was something off there. It was off. So the doctor broke my water, and after they broke my water, they're like, okay, now these are all the risks that you could have from your water being broken. Now there's like, an infections. You can have infections, this and this, and that, and that, and that. So they proceeded to tell me that they want to induce my labor so that they could start the process. And by this time, I'm super vulnerable. I'm like, no, I don't know what to do. Like, give me a second. Like, y'all just gave me all these drugs to stop my labor. Like, let my body rest. But even before, like, I was able to, like, tap into that mindset, I was almost gonna agree for them to induce my labor. Like, mind you, you're vulnerable in this time. Very, very vulnerable. You don't know what's right for you. You don't know your rights. It's very, very important to have someone there for you, vouching for you, that understands what you need, what you want, what's the best for you, aside from the fear-based knowledge of a doctor, which of course is going to tell you all the risk and not trust that your body knows best. So I was this close to allowing myself to get induced because of how painful how much pain I was already in, and just because of the knowledge that and vulnerability that I didn't have and had in the moment. So I had my partner telling me not to get induced. I had my sister not telling me to get induced, and it helped me to like set the ground rules at the doctors and pretty much, at the hospital, to be like, no, like, give me some time, give my body some time. Mind you, I was 34 and 4 weeks, so I had 3 days to be 35 weeks, and at 35 weeks, they don't even take your baby to the NICU. You're allowed to be with your baby. There's no high risk, they claim, and all this. So I was like, hopefully he could stay another 3 days. But they're like, yes, but these are the risks. Of course, they keep going back to the risks. So, I have them wait. They agreed to wait at least 24 hours to see how my body shifts. My sister flew over to Oahu in the nick of time to be there with me, and she was like, you should take a shower and let me give you a massage and a foot massage. She was very supportive, very helpful, very comforting. Super grateful for her nurturing energy, because I was losing it, and I was ready for it to be over. And like I said, I was this close to getting an inducement just for it to be over. So I took a shower, and she gave me a foot massage, and within 30 minutes after the foot massage and the shower, I started having stronger contractions that quick. Like, my body jumped right into it. And they came and checked me, and I was 8 centimeters dilated, and I got on all fours and started like bearing down on this intense pain, because it only got more and more intense. And by this time I'm like, I don't know if I could do it, like I need an epidural, like I don't know, like I'm not sure if I can, I wasn't trusting my body like I should have been, because I was getting scared. Like it was intense, it was scary. And the doctor was like, do you want an epidural, do you want an epidural, do you want an epidural? Like she kept trying to like push it, like ready to get to go get the epidural and give me the epidural. And I'm like, I don't know. And then literally 10 minutes after I was 8 centimeters dilated, I felt this urge to start pushing. So I was like, I'm pushing, I'm starting to push. And they were like, no, don't push. Like, can I check you? Like the doctor kept trying to like stick her fingers in me and check me. And I'm like, mind you, like I was intending on having a natural home birth with no intervention, nobody touching me, nobody like intervening and trying to check me every freaking 5 minutes. And so I was livid, I was pissed. The lady kept trying to put the freaking heart monitors on my stomach to monitor the baby's heart, and I'm like, my baby's fine, like get these off me. Like it was just so uncomfortable every time I contracted with these things wrapped around my waist. Like it was hella uncomfortable, and I kept fighting with the lady and trying to get them off. And they were like, we need to make sure your baby's okay, you're in preterm labor, anything can happen. And I'm like, nothing's gonna happen, fighting with these people, literally fighting, arguing with these people. And I finally, within 10 minutes, again, like I said, I started feeling the urge to push, and the lady's like, don't push, we need to wait till you're fully dilated to call in the people that are gonna come and be here. And there was like 15 people in the room. And so I finally told her, like, yeah, check me, go ahead. And in that 10 minutes in 30 minutes I went from 4 centimeters to 8 centimeters. 10 minutes after that, fully dilated. And they're like, okay, you could push. And then they tried like taking out the stirrups and was like, all right, get on your back. And I'm like, no, I'm doing this like this right here, right now, on all fours, ass up, face down. Like, this is how we're doing it. And they allowed me to keep that position, to hold that position. And within 20 minutes of pushing, I pushed out my baby and flipped my leg over, grabbed him, put him on my chest, and they immediately wanted me to cut his umbilical cord. And I'm now arguing with these people like, no, like, let me give me a minute, and they're trying to convince me like, no, we need to check him. And mind you, he came out screaming, he came out crying, so he was breathing, crying, looked perfectly healthy. And yeah, so they're just trying to force me to cut his umbilical cord. They're like, we're gonna clamp it. And I'm like, no, like, at least wait a minute. They're like, no, we need to check him, he's preterm labor. And like, they're just trying to like continuing to intervene, continuing to like have power and control over my experience. And it was so traumatizing. It was the worst intervention I've ever experienced, because I just felt like I didn't have control. And in that moment, again, us women were so vulnerable, and we don't know our rights. I didn't know my rights. I didn't know that if I said no, they can't do it. I didn't know. Like, women, like, please be aware of your rights. If you're planning on having a home birth, if you're planning on having a hospital birth, still research your rights, because you don't know what's gonna happen. We don't know. We're not planning for that. We're not expecting it to go the way we don't want it to go. So it's very, very important nowadays to Checker rights because they are going to have and try to control every little thing because of their high risk factors and their book knowledge. So anyways, I finally was just like, all right, cut it. It was like a minute, 2 minutes. I was over them by this point. I was ready to just relax. I said, okay, let's do it, clamp it. And then I cut his umbilical cord, and then they took him, cleaned him up, brought him back over to me, and I was able to hold him for like 2 minutes and try to put my nipple in his mouth to see if he would feed, and they didn't give me enough time to attempt to feed him. By this time they're like, we need to take him now. We need to make sure everything is okay. So at this point, again, like, I had no say in most of what was going on in that moment, and my sister was there, and my sister was like, I'll go with him to the NICU to make sure he's okay. And so they took him, and she went with him, and the whole experience lasted from 4 to fully dilated. It was like an hour, a little under an hour, maybe not even a whole hour, like 45 minutes. Well, probably like an hour. It's some change. I'm not 100% sure, but it was the quickest experience. You know, you hear all these stories like, I was in labor for 72 hours and pushing for this long, and sometimes you push and nothing happens, and people, then they have cesareans, and because of the high risk, you know, like, but thankfully I knew my body, I knew what I came to do, and I would say I was in full on like active labor for probably a little over an hour or less, like an hour and 10 minutes, 50. I can't fully remember. I didn't have it all the time, but yeah. And then having contractions for, what was it, 2 days, 3 days, but they were super mild, and so yeah, I'm super grateful for so I didn't take any pain medicines. I didn't have any epidurals. It was natural. I felt everything. It was hella painful. It felt like my vagina was being stretched to the gods. And I did tear a little bit, like teeny tiny, to the point where they're like, you don't need stitches, but if you want it to heal faster, you can have stitches. So I was contemplating on getting the stitches. Finally I was like, all right, give me some drugs. If you're gonna give me stitches, give me some drugs, because I need to relax. So I opted for after the baby's out, so you can give me some drugs now. So I opted for a low dose of the fentanyl, which I kind of regret a little bit because it did probably go into my breast milk. But I wasn't really breastfeeding at the time. I was just creating like slight colostrum, so it really wasn't that serious. But yeah, I got hit with the drugs, and then I let them stitch me up, and then yeah, they switched me to another room, and I got to go visit my baby, and I spent 12 days, no, 13, 14, I spent 14 days in the hospital, and they discharged me after 3 days, and then I slept in the NICU with my baby for 12 days, and it was super, super traumatic, super emotional seeing your baby hooked up to an IV. Thankfully, he was healthy. He didn't need any oxygen. He didn't need any medication. He was only on the IV for lipids and vitamins, just to give him a little extra food, until my breast milk fully came in and they started weaning him off the IV as my breast milk came in. And within a couple days they pulled the IV out. He had some jaundice, so he had to stay under the light for 1 day. And other than that, everyone was saying how big of a preemie baby he was, how beautiful he was, and he pulled through like a soldier. And it's been 3 days since I've been released from the hospital. Still dealing with the postpartum, still healing through the trauma, transitioning and adjusting as best as I can. But baby boy is doing so well. He's growing. He's eating so much more now, like 4 ounces he's taking. And I still can't believe I'm a mom. Like, I'm still processing that I'm a mom, and it's still hasn't hit me. But yeah, it was an amazing, traumatic experience, and that's my story. So if you guys have any questions, leave a comment and I will do my best to answer everything and everyone. Thanks for taking the time to listen to my story. I love you all, and I hope you guys are having the best day ever. Mwah.